Imagine you're a 5-year-old child, but instead of playing with blocks or learning to tie your shoes, you are standing in front of a classroom filled with future universal tyrants.
Which is just an incredible visual to start with.
Right. And your goal isn't to teach them how to be better materialists or like how to conquer galaxies.
No, definitely not.
Your goal is to teach them how to systematically dismantle their entire perception of reality. And that is the exact, frankly, mind-bending setup for the ancient text we're decoding in today's deep dive.
It really is wild. The source material here centers on a historical figure from the Vedic texts named Prahlāda Mahārāja.
Okay.
And he's the 5-year-old son of a literal tyrant surrounded by a society that is completely obsessed with power, wealth, and physical dominance.
So not exactly a mindful Zen environment.
Not at all. Yet he decides to give his schoolmates the staggeringly precise 12-point diagnostic breakdown of the soul.
Wow.
Yeah. He's basically offering them a toolkit to destroy the illusion of I and mine, which the Sanskrit texts refer to as ahamameti.
I really want to look at this toolkit for you listening, because usually when we encounter ancient spiritual instructions, they tend to lean heavily into like abstract poetry.
Sure, very metaphorical.
Yeah, but what we have here reads more like a mechanical manual. It's very structured.
Well, you have to look at this as a highly practical medical diagnostic.
Like a doctor diagnosing a patient.
Exactly. Just as a doctor identifies a specific physical illness so they can administer a targeted cure, Prahlāda is diagnosing a structural spiritual disease.
And what do the texts call this disease?
They call it the Hadagranthi, which literally translates to the knot in the heart.
The knot. I mean, a knot implies two things that shouldn't naturally be tied together, right?
That is the absolute core of the issue. The knot is the unnatural binding of the eternal conscious spirit to completely dead temporary matter.
So tying the living to the non-living.
Right. We've taken two fundamentally incompatible substances and tied them so tightly together that we can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Prahlāda is trying to untie that knot for his classmates.
Okay, so before we get into the actual 12 symptoms of the soul that he lays out, the sources introduce this framework to explain how we are supposed to, actually use this information.
Yes, the methodology.
Right, and they call it the gold miner's logic. Walk us through how a gold miner helps us untie a spiritual knot.
So the texts use the Sanskrit word hemakara, which refers to an expert geologist or a metallurgist.
Okay.
If a geologist looks at a lump of dirty, rusted ore pulled from a riverbed, they don't just see a rock.
They see the potential inside.
Exactly. Through chemical analysis, they know the specific acids and processes required to burn away the impurities and extract the pure gold hidden inside.
So how does that apply to us?
Well, in the same way, a spiritually advanced person uses an analytical study like a mental chemistry called neti-neti.
Neti-neti, which translates to not this, not this.
You got it.
I got it.
They use this process of elimination to systematically isolate the pure spirit soul from the material machine it's trapped inside.
It's like looking at a swamp covered in hardened mud and rust. The magnetic frequency of the iron underneath is still emitting, but the physical interference on top of it is just too dense to perceive the metal.
That's a great way to picture it.
So what exactly is this mud we're trying to clear away with this mental chemistry?
The mud is what the texts call the false ego.
Okay.
It's the illusion of ahamameti we mentioned earlier, that deeply ingrained belief that I am this physical body and everything related to this body is mine.
Right. The I and the mind.
Yeah. And to break it down mechanically, the sources describe the material machine as being composed of 24 distinct elements.
24? I mean, that seems like a lot of moving parts for just a physical body.
It is a highly complex machine. I mean, you have the gross visible hardware, the strata of earth, water, fire, air, and ether.
The physical stuff.
Right. Then you have the invisible, subtle software running the machine, which is the mind, the intelligence, and that glitch of the false ego.
The software glitch.
Exactly. And finally, you have the interface. The 5 knowledge-gathering senses, like eyes and ears, the 5 working senses, like hands and vocal cords, and the 5 objects of the senses, like form and sound.
That is quite the list.
It is. And when the conscious soul gets entangled in these 24 elements, it develops a condition the texts refer to as cataractic vision.
Like a literal cataract forming over the eye.
Precisely. It is a complete distortion of reality. We mistake the rental vehicle for the driver.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Very. The tragedy of this cataractic vision is the output. We end up pouring our infinite eternal energy into maintaining a 24-element machine that is mathematically destined to break down and turn to ashes.
Which sounds completely exhausting.
It's the ultimate exercise in futility. But that's where Prahlāda's 12 symptoms come in. They act as the chemical wash for the geologist.
The acids we apply to burn away the false ego.
Exactly. To reveal the gold.
Okay, so let's apply the first chemical wash for you listening. Based on the sources, the first cluster of symptoms really focuses on the fundamental, indestructible nature of this gold.
Right, the baseline reality.
If the body is temporary, what makes the soul different?
So the first 4 symptoms establish this. First, it is Atma, meaning it is eternally existing.
Never created, never destroyed.
Right, it never ceases to exist. Second, it is Nitya, meaning unchanging and permanent.
Okay.
Third, it is Avyaya, which means inexhaustible and undiminishing. And fourth, it is Shuddha, intrinsically pure and completely free from material contamination.
All right, I need to push back on this a little because the theory sounds pristine, but the lived experience really doesn't match up.
How do you mean?
Well, if my core identity is fundamentally pure, Suddha, and completely inexhaustible, Avyaya, why do I need 3 cups of coffee just to get through a Tuesday?
That is very fair.
I mean, why do we constantly feel so muddy, drained, and burned out by daily life?
The sources actually anticipate that exact frustration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the exhaustion you feel, the burnout, the mental fog, none of that actually belongs to the soul.
Wait, really? It feels pretty real to me?
It feels real, but it belongs entirely to the material body and the subtle mind. The conditioned soul is essentially trapped in a vehicle that is constantly being battered by the physical laws of nature.
But the feeling of exhaustion feels so profoundly personal. It feels like I am exhausted, not just my vehicle.
Sure, but the texts offer a brilliant analogy to explain this mechanic. Picture a large ancient tree.
Okay, an ancient tree.
That tree stands firm and practically unchanging for decades. But the fruits and leaves on that tree go through 6 very violent seasonal changes.
Right, they bud, they grow.
They are born as buds, they grow, they stay for a little while, they produce byproducts, they dwindle, and eventually they rot and fall off.
And the body is the fruit in this scenario.
Yes, exactly. The body undergoes those 6 transformations, but the soul itself is nitya. It is unchanging.
So it doesn't rot.
Right. It does not undergo birth, growth, dwindling, or death. The burnout happens because our consciousness is entirely anchored in the decaying fruit.
Oh, wow. So we identify with the fruit.
We have identified with the temporary leaves falling off the branches rather than the eternal tree. We're exhausting ourselves trying to prevent a biological fruit from rotting.
Which is a fight we will lose every single time.
Now, 100% of the time.
That reframes the anxiety of aging entirely. But if the soul is just this unchanging, eternal observer, how does it actually experience reality? I mean, it can't just be a static rock.
Oh, it is the absolute opposite of static.
Okay.
The next cluster of symptoms defines the soul as the ultimate conscious observer. This is where the diagnostic toolkit separates the subject from the object.
So let's walk through these. The texts identify the soul as Kshetrajanya, the knower of the field.
Yes.
They also call it Draya, the original foundation, and Svaduk, meaning self-illumined. How do these mechanics actually work in real time?
Let's start with Kshetrayan, the knower of the field. The field is the physical body and the environment it moves through.
Like a playing field.
Exactly. And the soul is the localized conscious witness experiencing that field.
You know, the sources bring up a really fascinating limit of physics regarding this idea of the observer.
Oh, the eye and the knife.
Yeah. They point out that the eye cannot see itself. A knife, no matter how sharp, cannot cut itself.
It's physically impossible.
Right. So if we apply that to the knower of the field, it highlights this massive cognitive error we all make. We spend our lives searching for ourself among material objects.
We constantly look externally.
We look for our identity in our careers, our bank accounts, our social media profiles. But that is literally like looking for the movie theater's projector by staring really intensely at the movie screen.
That is the defining trap of the false ego right there.
It's completely backward.
It is. The sources actually cite a profound verse from the Bahadaranyaka Upanishad about this, where the sage Yajavalkya states, "You cannot see the seer of seeing. You cannot hear the hearer of hearing."
That's a bit of a tongue twister.
You cannot think the thinker of thinking. You cannot know the knower of knows.
You cannot know the knower of knowing. I mean, that creates a real paradox. If I can't know it, how do I realize it?
Well, it sets the ultimate boundary of material logic. The knower can never be reduced to an object on a table that you just study.
Right, because the moment you study it, it becomes an object.
Exactly. Searching for your true self among material objects or even mental concepts is totally futile.
So what's the solution?
True realization isn't about analytically discovering a new object. It's about a radical shift in perspective. It's awakening to the fact that you are the subjective observer.
The subject, not the object.
Right. You are the svadok, the self-illuminated spark that shines by its own light. You don't need external proof of your consciousness.
Because your consciousness is the light by which you perceive the proof in the first place.
Precisely. You don't use a flashlight to look for the sun.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about the symptom of vichara, the foundation?
Right, the basis of everything.
The sources claim that without the soul, the body collapses. But from a purely biological standpoint, isn't the skeleton the foundation? I mean, structurally.
Think about a building. If you remove the structural foundation, the whole edifice crumbles.
Sure.
The biological parallel is jarring but true. The second consciousness leaves the physical body despite every single chemical, bone, and cell still being physically present on the bed. The body instantly begins to decompose.
Oh, because the unifying force is gone.
Exactly. The 24 elements lose their unifying force. The soul is the active ingredient holding the biological structure together. It is the ashaya.
That's a powerful image. There is another symptom in this cluster I want to clarify, though, and that is ka, meaning individual.
Ah, yes. Individuality.
Because a lot of popular spiritual traditions argue that ultimate enlightenment means realizing we are all just one single blob of consciousness.
Right, the drop merging into the ocean.
Yeah, the goal is to erase your individuality entirely, to merge into a giant formless light.
Well, the Vedic texts aggressively refute the idea that your individuality is just an illusion.
They do.
Oh, absolutely. They use a concept from the Katha Upanyad to explain the spatial physics of consciousness. The phrase is anor atiyan mahato mahyan.
And what does that mean mechanically?
It explains that the individual soul is a microscopic atomic spark of consciousness.
Wait, I'm stuck on this idea of the soul being atomic.
Okay.
If it's just a tiny localized spark residing in the heart, how am I able to feel a paper cut on my thumb and a headache at the exact same time?
That brings us directly to the next vital symptom, vyapaka, which means all-pervading.
All-pervading, but you just said it was atomic.
Right, think of the sun. The sun is a localized entity existing in one specific location in our solar system.
Sure.
But its sunlight pervades the entire universe. Similarly, the atomic soul sits in the region of the heart, but its light, which is consciousness, radiates throughout the entire physical frame.
Radiating via the nervous system.
Exactly. You feel the paper cut because the sunlight of your consciousness is illuminating that specific nerve ending.
So Ika means I am permanently an individual spark radiating consciousness through my specific vehicle.
Yes. Individuality is an eternal reality, not a temporary mistake. You are an eternal individual particle of light meant to have a dynamic relationship with the infinite, not just, dissolve into nothingness.
Okay, so we have this eternal atomic observer radiating consciousness. But observation alone doesn't type an email or walk down the street.
No, it doesn't.
How does this spark actually drive the 24-element machine? That brings us to the final mechanical symptoms. Hetu, meaning the actual cause or engine, and avikara, meaning changeless.
So matter is inherently dead. It has no self-starting capability whatsoever.
Right. A car doesn't drive itself.
Yeah. Exactly. The soul is the hetu, the engine. The material body only appears to move, speak, and act because the soul is actively animating it.
It's the ghost of the machine.
Very much so. But the real secret to daily life is found in the very last symptom Prahlāda gives, asaggi.
Asagga, meaning completely unattached or independent.
Yes.
The sources provide a really vivid mechanical analogy for this. They say the soul in the body is exactly like oil on water.
A classic analogy.
You can pour oil and water into the exact same glass. They can occupy the exact same container, but they fundamentally refuse to mix. Their molecular structures remain entirely distinct.
That is the perfect way to understand asa. The soul is the engine spreading its consciousness everywhere, but structurally it remains completely aloof from the blood, the bones, and the brain chemistry.
It never actually gets wet.
Exactly. But the ultimate tragedy of human life is that we forget this asogi nature.
We forget we're the oil.
We spend our entire lives acting as though we are the water instead of realizing we are the oil floating on top.
So when we forget we are the oil and we identify completely with the water, what actually happens to us?
Well, we fall into what Prahlāda Mahārāja describes as the dark well.
That sounds pretty bleak.
It is. The texts describe how human intelligence is an incredibly rare, highly capable tool meant to realize the self.
A supercomputer.
Right. But when we misidentify with the body, we use that vast intelligence merely to serve the most basic biological demands, primarily the demands of the tongue and the genitals.
Eating and reproducing.
Yes. We take a supercomputer and use it to calculate how to build a more comfortable prison.
You know, the sources use the analogy of the silkworm here, which I think is a brilliant way to understand how we trap ourselves.
The silkworm is the perfect parallel.
Because the silkworm secretes threads from its own body to weave a tight, comfortable little cocoon around itself.
Right. It's just doing what comes naturally.
It thinks it is building a safe home,
Yeah.
but eventually that very house becomes the trap that kills it,
And we do the exact same thing with our thoughts and desires.
just constantly weaving.
We constantly secrete anxieties, ambitions, and material affections. We weave a psychological cocoon.
Oh, that's such a striking image.
We obsess over protecting our temporary reputation. We calculate the loss of pennies in our bank accounts. We wrap our entire identity in our temporary family dynamics.
All the mind stuff.
Exactly. We weave this incredibly dense network of attachments, completely ignoring the fact that we are losing the supreme treasure of human life self-realization.
Wow.
The texts call this the blind leading the blind. We become so entangled in the illusion of material profit that we imperceptibly spoil the entire purpose of possessing a human nervous system.
The knot in the heart just gets pulled tighter and tighter.
Exactly.
So bringing this all back to you, the listener, what is the practical application of this deep dive?
That's the most important question.
By actively utilizing Prahlāda Mahārāja's 12-point diagnostic toolkit, you can practice the gold miner's logic in your daily life. You can mentally separate your core self from the 24 material elements surrounding you.
Apply the neti-neti. Not this, not this.
Right. You don't have to be crushed by the burnout of a stressful job or a personal failure, because that exhaustion belongs to the rotting fruit, not the tree.
Beautifully said.
You are the eternal Atma. You are the self-illuminated Svadok observing the field. Most importantly, whether you are sitting in gridlock traffic or dealing with a crisis, you are always floating like oil on water.
Unattached.
Completely asal, fundamentally unattached to the chaos of the material machine.
Understanding that mechanic changes absolutely everything. And there is one final consequence of this toolkit I want to leave you with. Drawing on the source material's breakdown of time.
Oh, this is a profound point.
We established earlier that the soul is avya, inexhaustible. It does not decay.
So it is entirely immune to the physical destruction of time.
Precisely. Therefore, the deep existential anxiety you feel about your lifespan slipping away, the panic of getting older, the fear of running out of time,
Yeah.
that is simply a symptom of identifying with the rental car instead of the driver. You are feeling the rust developing on the vehicle's chassis and mistakenly believing it is happening to you.
It's the cataractic vision.
Exactly. So here is a provocative thought to explore on your own. If you were to truly internalize this 12-point diagnosis, if you could genuinely step out of the frantic, bumper-to-bumper material traffic jam of I and mine and anchor yourself as the unmoving observer,
What happens?
would your perception of time simply stop? Or would you finally, for the very first time in your life, experience the present moment at the exact correct speed?
That is a completely paradigm-shifting way to experience your own existence. Take these 12 tools with you, remember the gold miner's logic, and whenever the world gets too heavy, just remember to keep floating like oil on water. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.